is your name and your job title?
I'm Travis Hall, and I'm the program director.
Okay. And as your job as the program director, what are your roles and responsibilities here at Youth Challenge?
Essentially, I'm responsible for all the operations here in the program. We have a women's home, a men's home, a thrift store, and other vocational activities that go on. So I'm basically oversee all those operations.
Wow. Okay. And how long has Youth Challenge been around?
Youth Challenge has been around for roughly 34 years. It was founded in 1979 by Reverend Troy Collier.
Okay. And what role does Youth Challenge play in the community?
Youth Challenge, our main role is as a faith-based residential substance abuse program where young men and women, and some not so young, uh, who have drug problems can come into the program and find the help that they need. We also do other community service aspects in the community with the food bank and some other charities, and we also help people coming in and out of homeless situations through our thrift store. So it's a lot more than just a drug program. We do quite a bit in the community.
That's terrific. And how many men and women are undergoing treatment here?
Right now we've got 27 men in the uh, induction phase of the men's program, and there's roughly 20 more up in the second phase of Pennsylvania, and I've got 6 back in the third, which is the reentry phase of the men's program. And our women's program we have nine students currently in the women's program.
Okay. And you've mentioned that there's separate programs for the men and the women. Why is that?
We want to keep the men and women separate and keep them, for one, they have some different issues that need to be talked about and expressed in a context that's probably not appropriate to have males and females together. But also we want to keep them focused on why they're there. And we don't want them to get distracted in relationships and things like that.
And how long are students usually in treatment for?
Our women's program is 12 months. Sometimes it might go 15, depending on if there's been a discipline issue. Our men's program is 17 months.
All right. And do students usually admit themselves, or are they appointed to admit themselves? How does that work?
It's a completely voluntary program. If they come off the streets, obviously, they'll either show up or they'll make a phone call requesting help. Those that do come to us through the courts, they actually request the help up front and go through the interview process, and if they're accepted into the program, then we go to court with them, and it's presented to the judge as an alternative to incarceration, and the judge either says yes or no, and if the judge says yes, then he makes it a condition of their probation. He'll basically suspend the sentence and say, a condition of your probation is you have to complete this program.
And, there's been a lot of, talk about heroin, being on the rise in this community. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting. I was actually just in court yesterday in Virginia Beach, and the judge talked a lot about heroin being on the rise. I've seen a lot more cases coming before him with heroin, people with heroin addiction, and we're seeing a lot of it here. A lot of it, what we're seeing, has to deal with people who get started with pain meds. Basically, they'll start using Vicodins or Percocets or whatever, and then they get harder and harder to find, and they're a little pricey depending on what you want. And heroin has actually gotten a lot cheaper, and it's really easy to find. So once you're hooked and you have that opiate addiction, you've got to feed the addiction. And if you can't find the pill, then heroin's right there. And then once they go to the heroin, then there's no comparison in the high. And so then they immediately shift over to heroin.
So how has heroin, made its way down here? How do you think that?
Heroin's been around for a long time. There was a time back in the 70s and in 80s when actually Hampton Roads was probably one of the heroin capitals of the East Coast. And I think because of the amount of water and the ports that we have, I think it's just an easy place, for drugs to get brought in. So it's nothing new, but I think when crack cocaine came around, that's all we heard about was crack cocaine because it was such a quick and wide spread. And heroin is just now is starting to make a comeback. So I think we're hearing about it more, but I think it's never left. It's always been there.
And would you say the majority of your students have had issues with heroin, or is it a mixture?
It's a mixture. It's probably at least 50% are with heroin,
Wow.
and then we have a lot with crack cocaine, and a lot of them are more than just alcohol because of you got just addict behavior is you pretty much have to hit your bottom, especially before you'll do a 17-month program. So by then usually you've had quite a few consequences. But spice actually is the new thing. Actually, that's really we're starting to see more and more of, which is very interesting.
And you said nearly 50% of your students have had issues with heroin. Why do you think we're seeing that so much?
Again, I think it comes down to the prescription drugs. As far as addiction is um, addiction's addiction, no matter what the drug is. But as far as the rise in heroin, I think I attribute it to the pain pills because in the beginning, it's real easy access, and there's a lot of them around, and I can stub my toe and go get a prescription for Vicodin, and then or my mom's got Vicodin in the cabinet or whatever, and so you start out just taking a couple pills, and then it progresses from there where 2 Vicodin no longer do it, and now you want to move on to Percocets, and then you move on to Oxycontin, and those become very pricey and very hard to find. And when you're talking 25, or more dollars for a single pill sometimes, or I can go and get, a cap for $10 and, get high that way. So I attribute it mainly to the pain pills, I think, is why we've seen such a rise in heroin, because that's the type of high that they're used to.
And then just my last question, why do you think it's important with, heroin being on the rise to stress the dangers of the drug and just drugs in general?
I think it's important for people to understand the consequences. Nobody sets out to be a heroin addict. I don't think anybody, when they woke up, said, you know what, I think I'll be a heroin addict today. I think they get involved with it somewhat innocently. They just kind of want to escape the day or whatever the reason is. They may take a couple pills, or it may start out fun and games. I know in my personal addiction, it started out smoking a lot of weed and doing those things in high school because it was fun. And then my addiction took me to a place I never thought I would go. And if I would have really thought and knew about the consequences where I would end up 18 years later, it's a pretty good preventive. So it's important for people to know what the consequences are.
And how long have you been clean?
I actually came through this same program back in 2000, and my life has never been the same since. It's been wonderful. So I guess I guess I graduated in 2001, but while you're here, obviously you're not getting high. So it's been about 14 years. 14 years, well 14 years ago, today's the 1st. On the 5th of this month, actually, is when I came into the program.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yep. God's been good. He's been very good.
That's amazing. Good.
Can you just say your name and spell it for us and your title here?
Okay. Travis Hall, TravisHall, and I'm the program director.
Okay, great. Mr. Hall, we're going to do a reversal. Do you need to talk? No, oh, that's okay.
Oh.
You can be nosy. I just want to make sure you didn't need
You're staying here too long. I'll put you in this chair.